a look at these textures. Like, they don't load in properly. There we go. I mean, I'm standing right here. This guy's walking past me. I don't even know what that is. Like, that's just an orange blob there. All right, this guy's just hiding inside the structure here. Very creative. Alright, so today we are testing the Radeon 6600 XT in Redfall. We'll be testing today at 1080p, 1440p and 4K. We'll see how 4K goes. I'm not entirely sure whether we'll be able to do that, but just have a look at these textures. Like, they don't load in properly. There we go. Now it's loaded in properly. Just have a look at our VRAM usage there. This is an 8GB VRAM GPU. And currently we're only using around 5.8 gigabytes, so I'm not entirely sure why there's such bad texture pop in. Alright, I'm just going to go through our settings here. Let's just get rid of that. We are currently running at 1080p. We're on the Epic preset, and the rest of the settings are pretty much the same. We've got no upscaling, and motion blur is disabled. Alright, let's just reset our numbers here, and off we go. Now, Redfall has gotten quite a lot of flack online for good reason. Just have a look at the frame time graph there. The frame rate dipped into the 50s there. That's just the Unreal Engine traversal stutter that happens when you enter a new area or a new zone has to load, and it is extremely annoying, especially because this happens quite a lot in this game. But the biggest issue that I personally have with this game is, sure, the art style is not for everybody. The textures, those are definitely lacking. Definitely not the best of texture detail. And for it to pop in as it does, I think definitely some optimization is required. But when it comes to raw frame rate, the frame rate is fine. It's just the consistency that's a little bit of an issue. Then when it comes to gameplay, well, just look at and now it's actually fully loaded in, but those crates over there, that was terrible. Like, it didn't even load properly. You couldn't even see it was a crate. That's just the issues that I personally have with this game. There seems to be a zombie. Yeah. I'm used to playing zombie games. A vampire there with a shield. Apparently those are difficult enemies, but there's also been quite a few videos online about how the AI with these vampires just don't work. Alright, but the biggest gripe I have with this game is that it's completely empty. I mean, we've run around for like 2 minutes now, and we still haven't seen a single vampire except for this specific one here. I mean, I'm standing right in front of it, and it just doesn't seem to like recognize that I'm an enemy. Anyway, and that's pretty much it.
They're slick, but they can't slide on barbed wire.
I mean, I'm standing right here. This guy's walking past me. That guy's walking in, like, he's got question marks. He's like, what's going on here? And looking straight at me. Is he going to notice me? I've got no idea. That the AI, now he notices me. All right, a good job. But the AI in this game is terrible. The game is extremely empty. This is just not a game that you should be paying $70 for. Now, luckily, I didn't pay $70 for it. This is available on the Xbox Game Pass, and I do play quite a few games on there, so this was just an addition. Right, so at 1080p Epic, you could see that we are using around 6.5 gigabytes, so that's allocated, and usage is sitting around 5.6 gigabytes of VRAM. And we had an average here of 88 frames per second, which is definitely not terrible, but those 1% and 0.1% lows tell a different story. But just look at, I don't even know what that is. Like, that's just an orange blob there. And this is on Epic. And it's not a VRAM issue because we aren't close to that 8 gigabytes VRAM buffer that we have available. It's literally just an orange blob. As soon as you zoom in slightly, it then becomes a bush. Definitely not worth $70. And I mean, now all of a sudden, like, what is this? This is ridiculous. I mean, all right, so now all of a sudden the season changes and leaves fall on the floor. There we go. Just a terrible experience all in all. Now you just look at the shimmering there in the fence. We're not using any upscaling, so this is a native, which it's just a very weird that the game looks like this at native. Right, so the aim of these videos, or depending on the game, is to get a playable frame rate. I just want to show you what settings you can use with different hardware. We're getting 100 frames per second, give or take, with this GPU, well, 90 on the average. So I'm not going to be lowering the details. I'm not going to go down to high or medium at 1080p, but we will probably have to change that at 1440p, but let's go to 1440p now. Right, we're on 1440p on the Epic preset, still no upscaling. And now my MSI heads-up display in the top left-hand corner is slightly small. Right, we just had to Alt-tab back into Windows and adjust the size. Hopefully the game doesn't crash. I've had it in my previous runs where the game would just, my mouse would actually stop working. I couldn't click on any items. Shooting and moving around still worked, but as soon as I go into the menu and try to click on something, it just wouldn't respond. But you can see here that this game is extremely empty. We killed 3 enemies so far, 1 vampire, 2 humans, and that's pretty much it. And we've been at this for around 6 minutes now. Just one thing that I want to show you, the awesomeness, or the complete awesomeness of car explosions in this game, if you haven't seen my previous video. And that was it. Extremely, extremely impressive. Oh, yes, somebody's shooting, and you can just see that the frame rate is dropping to below 60 frames per second as soon as those traversal stutters kick in. Like, are these guys target practicing, or what are they shooting at? I've got no idea. Are they shooting the vampire? Everybody seems to be shooting. Yeah, I think these guys are actually shooting at the vampires, but they don't usually fight each other. Or are these guys fighting each other? I don't know. The AI in this game is completely broken. Let's just... I've got a cloak, so I'm going to activate my cloak and try and get a better view. Hey. These guys are shooting each other, but I think they are the same. So this is a Hollow Man cultist. Let's just go over the gorge there and see if these are actually people supposed to be on the same team. I hope not. Oh, these are bellwether operators. Alright, so they're not supposed to be on the same team. That's probably why they're shooting at each other. Alright, it makes a little bit more sense now. I can't aim that low. Alright, now I can. Alright, I think it's just my mouse that's a little bit stuck, as I said. It happens from time to time when you alt-tab out of the game. Alright, this guy's just hiding inside the structure here. Very creative, because now we can't kill him, but can he actually? There's 2 of them. Or they're Siamese twins. I'm right here, and nobody is doing anything to me. I got no idea. This is such a stupid game, right? Like, it really is the issue. Now all of us, wow, alright, they almost killed me. Like, I don't know how, but okay. So pointless. Anyway, alright, so we had around 60 frames per second with 1440p. Let's just see if the textures inside here actually load completely. And the textures still don't load, even though our VRAM usage is sitting at 5.4 gigabytes.
Oh, dear.
Such a terribly broken game at this point in time. Like, if you don't have Xbox Game Pass, then just don't install this. Even if you do have Xbox Game Pass, just don't install this anyway, just to save some disk space. This is ridiculous. And I'm not just saying that because I'm sour because I died. Alright, so let's see if we can actually up the frame rate a bit. I'm just going to go down to high. Right at 1440p high, still no upscaling. And let's just apply that. Let's reset our benchmark numbers here. And we saw a, what was it, 10 to 15 frames per second increase here. We did see 70 frames per second at 1440p on the Epic preset as well. But let's just see if this actually helps us with some of the stuttering. And no, definitely not. All right. I mean, that's just the Unreal Engine, right? The Unreal Engine has got inherent issues with the traversal stutter. Some games can mitigate it. I'm not entirely sure how. Maybe they just spend a lot more time trying to optimize it. But the traversal stutter in this game is horrendous, especially because it's a fast-moving game. So you do run around a lot, traversing between zones, and you'll just run into this issue all the time. I'm still not sure what my crow is supposed to do. Does it only mark enemies? I think so. And I think these guys are fighting the bellwether operators again. Alright, they can try and kill each other as long as they just leave me out of it.
Last one.
As you can see that our 0.1% low number is actually sitting at 6 frames per second, which is worse than it was at Epic Reset. So there was definitely one much bigger stutter than previously. Are these guys still stuck in the structure here? It looks like they managed to get out. Now, if there were this many enemies more frequently in the game, it would actually improve the gameplay quite a lot. It wouldn't get rid of any of the other glaring issues, obviously, but at least it'll be maybe a little bit more fun to play. Alright, but anyway, yeah, we're here to benchmark, not game review, and that's not my style. Anyway, so we had an average frame rate of 77 at 1440p high. Our 1% lows are sitting at 37, and our 0.1% lows are sitting at an extremely high 6. Alright, so now let's try 1440p on the Epic preset again, but this time with FSR. I'd much rather advise you to use the high preset instead of the Epic preset and not to use FSR. This game is just one of those games that look a lot better at native than it does with upscaling tech. Just look at the shadows there, like that's completely broken. Anyway, let's just get on with it. Alright, so we're back on the Epic preset and let's just use FSR. We're just going to go on to quality. I'm not going to change the sharpening at all. Even though we didn't touch the sharpening, this now looks a lot sharper. Just look at the shadows there. This doesn't look that good at all. Not that the native looked much better, but it did look better. But now you can see we're getting around the same frame rate as what we had at 1440p high, getting in the 80s, well, 70s, 80s. The traversal stutters are still there. This just looks completely over sharpened. I personally don't mind a sharper image, but this to even me is way too sharp. Let's just see if we can do something about that. Like, it is on its lowest, right? So it's on 0. So I've got no idea why it should be sharpening this much. Alright, anyway, let's just move on. Another big traversal stutter there. All in all, this GPU performs quite well in this game. As you can see, we're getting decent frame rates as long as we can get above 60 frames per second. This game is actually playable. It's fine at 60 frames per second. I mean, it launched on Xbox at 30 frames per second, so that should tell you something. But once again, in the middle of town here, and there's literally nothing to shoot at. Like, nothing. I understand it's the middle of the day, but as far as I could see, the vampires don't really care about the sunlight. But just look at the shadows, the flickering of the shadows. And this is... oh, you're a vampire. This is not an upscaling issue. This happens at native as well, which is just terrible. All in all, this is just a terrible game at its in its current state. Just look at those stutters. That was terrible. Like, that was ridiculous. Finally, we get some enemies, and I think that's maybe why we had that many stutters. Maybe the AI woke up or something. I got no idea what logic this game uses and why there's so many stutters. So are these guys hiding in the shadow because of the sun, or do they really not care about sunlight? Let's just see. They don't care about sunlight at all. Maybe I missed something in the intro. Maybe there's an explanation. There probably is. I'm probably just being stupid. As usual. Alright, so we killed 5 additional enemies and now there's nothing left to kill. And the stuttering in the middle of town is much worse than when it was in the outskirts. So all in all, just avoid this game for now. I keep on saying it, but I know you guys also skip a lot in this in these videos. So I'm going to keep on repeating it until it filters through. Just avoid this game at all costs at this point in time. Sure, this is an RX 6600 XT. It's not really meant for 1440p gaming, even though it does pretty well at 1440p. This is definitely not a GPU performance issue. Alright, let's see what happens at 4K. Right, we're now at 4K on the Epic preset and getting 40 frames per second. I expected a lot worse actually. There's no upscaling applied at the moment. The heads-up display in the top left-hand corner is now a little bit smaller, but I don't want to risk alt-tabbing back into Windows again just in case the game crashes. Now we are getting frame rate drops to below 20 frames per second even. I mean, look at our 0.1% low state sitting at 12. I mean, it's still double than what we had previously and was sitting at 6, but still definitely not a good experience this. Now, this is still more than what the Xbox is capable of, and this is at native 4K. So, I mean, if you were planning on playing this on the Xbox at 30 frames per second, then you might as well play this with this GPU at 4K native. I know they said that there's going to be a 60 frames per second patch, but no idea when that's coming out, and I might just die once again. It's really embarrassing dying in this game because we keep on talking about how terrible the AI is, and then the AI kills us. But I'm just going to blame it on the performance. Like, where is he shooting me from? Like, they hide pretty well. I did see him there, but I had no shot. Like, all we have to go on is the audio cues and not visual cues, because I really can't see them that well. The stuttering doesn't help at all either. That's just my excuse. Did he die? He died. Alright, so at least in the last half of our benchmark run, we had quite a bit of action actually, which is quite nice to see. Now the frame rate actually dropped below 30 frames per second, almost. I'm getting close to that 30 frames per second barrier. Is this Trafalgar Square? Where are the pigeons? I mean, it's obviously not Trafalgar Square, but there's a vampire. That's a dangerous vampire, I think. I mean, it's Shroud, so this one must be accurate. Does this thing have like auto-aim or something? Because my mouse just literally jumped to that vampire when I aimed. Wow. Is this the ability of the vampire, or has the game gone completely berserk now? I think the game broke. I don't think this is what's supposed to happen here. I might be wrong. Let's see what happens if we actually kill this. Okay, maybe it was an ability. First time I've seen that.
This place ain't killed me yet.
Alright, so we didn't get a playable experience at 4K. I mean, that's to be expected. This is not a 4K GPU. But let's see if we can alleviate that with dropping the quality settings and maybe use some FSR. Right, let's just first see what frame rate gains we get from just dropping down to high preset. I don't think we'll get close to 60. I mean, gained like 5 frames per second. Terrible, terrible. Alright, that didn't help us much, so let's just enable... Let's go down to medium. Let's see if that helps. Getting closer, getting around 45 frames per second here. Definitely better than 35, but I would have expected it to be a little bit better, because we dropped 2 quality presets now. Went from epic to medium. Alright, so none of those are getting us a 60 frames per second experience. Let's just go with the FSR on the quality preset. Let's see if we get 60 frames per second now. Alright, so we managed to hit that 60 frames per second target. We won't be able to maintain it, I can promise you that. But at least we'll be getting it sometimes, which is good enough. And there we drop down into the 30s. I'm not going to be lowering the detail settings. I'm not going to go down to low. I think if we want a constant 60 frames per second experience, we might have to use FSR balanced or maybe even FSR performance, which is still not terrible, because at 4K, if you enable FSR performance, it's still rendering at 1080p. So it's definitely not the end of the world. But once again, this GPU was definitely not made for 4K gaming. But it is good to see that it can almost hold its own at 4K in this game. Not consistently, but I don't think that's the GPU's fault, or purely the GPU's fault. And now we don't have any more ammo. And surprisingly, we actually, as I said earlier, we had a lot more action in the last half of the benchmark than in the first one. I don't know what an angler is, but maybe they're trying to hook me with something. So I'm just going to try and avoid that because I've got no ammo. I think they have other ideas. That's just cloak. Alright, that was not cool. I keep on double pressing sprint because that's how I sprint in Call of Duty. But then in this game it cancels the sprint. Apparently melee attacks are much stronger in this game. Alright, we've wasted enough time and enough ammo on this game. Even on a very high-end system, these stutters are experience ruining. I mean, I did benchmark this with a 4080 as well, and there the stutters seem to be even worse because we are getting like almost 200 frames per second, and then it drops down into the 30s, 40s with these traversal stutters, so it's a lot more noticeable. Not that this is less annoying. These traversal stutters are definitely like a really experience ruining. Alright, but that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and as always, we hope to see you in the next one.